Welcome to the Champion Blueprint Podcast, where mindset meets mission.
We're diving into what it really takes to lead, win, and live with purpose.
From NFL locker rooms to boardrooms, it's all about discipline, core values, and the habits that build champions.
Whether you're leveling up in business, life, or leadership, this is your playbook.
Champion your mindset.
Champion your purpose.
Let's go.
Welcome back once again. Champion Blueprint Podcast. Yours truly, George Rogers, and always sitting to the left, the man, the myth, the legend, the champ.
Let's go.
The champ is here.
Hey.
Hey, the champ is here.
That was my jam back in the day, man. Feeling good. Obviously, last week, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Still trying to lose that, 10 pounds I put on. But ready to go, ready to get, what I'm saying?
Rock.
End of the year, finish strong, and head into 2026.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today, Gary, is finish strong, start stronger.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about self-evaluations. And today, we're going to be talking about the year-end business evaluation that can set up 2026 to be a success. And this is something that's important to me. And I want to encourage everybody today to stay tuned. We got a lot of good stuff we're going to be giving. We're going to talk about the EAC framework model. But truly for me, the end of the year isn't about wrapping up. And I know Christmas is coming and knocking around the corner. We were wrapping gifts. But from a business mindset, this is a lot of time people are taking off. Family, business is slowing down. Sales are just kind of like we're kind of tuning in. But for me, it's not just about wrapping up. It's really about gearing up for me. And how you evaluate now determines how you accelerate in 2026. So often, Gary, it's like, I hate it. We talked about it before. I don't like it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I believe it's how you start and finish. And so we want to start and finish strong because too many leaders either skip evaluations or just check the box. Champions know reflection without action is just nostalgia.
Yeah, that's it.
Gotta be able to check in with that. Why is this topic important to you as so many things, but this is evaluation. It's something that you were passionate about. Like once we were talking about self-evaluation, he's like, we got to talk about the business evaluation
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
because the whole thing of like, numbers matter.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in business, it's a math equation.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people don't have the numbers to do the equation.
Right.
It's always like find for X.
Yeah.
Well, what's X?
Yep.
Or in your business, if you can't manage it unless you measure it. So really looking at what things do you measure, we're going to discuss what things you should measure.
Yeah.
I think it's critical because, looking at the end of the year, it's just not looking at that top line, what the gross sales were. There's so many things that led up to that point. So it's really about breaking that down and trying to make an impact, on the P&L, on your performance, on your company, all those things.
You said what gets measured gets managed.
Yes, sir.
Right. And so we're talking about system processes, strategies. You want to be able to measure those things so that you can manage them. It's always this debate for me. You lead people, you manage systems and processes. And so today we want to help you make a promise today that we're going to be breaking down how to evaluate your business and honestly build an action plan and align it for 2026 goals. Right. And even further than that, you talk about like, what do you want in the next year, 5-year, 10-year goals? Yeah. And how does this impact all those things? I believe this today. So let's dive in on why the end of the year evaluation really matter. For me, for my point, it's what you said. If you don't measure it, you cannot manage it. And I believe it's one of those things, Gary, when it comes to business, like I want to be able to rewind the footage. I used to love in the retail stores, we had cameras, obviously, for obvious reasons. One, there's a lot of devices and accessories, and some people come in with sticky fingers.
Keep it honest, people honest.
But one of the things we did, I want to say it was about year 3 into the business. We're about 14 stores in. It was like, man, we want to start. We talked about recognition and gratitude last week. One of the things that we want to do is we wanted to like celebrate the people. I used to say, don't get married to the customers, right? This is like get in, get out, serve them, make them feel valued, like we're there, but you don't need to be spending 10, 20 minutes with somebody. 5 to 8 minutes is a sweet spot of understanding what their problem is and the solution that we provide, right? And be able to get them in and out so they can get on with their time. We want to value their time so they can go do other stuff. We'll take care of their device and they can come pick that up. One of the things we started doing is that we started celebrating the champions of like who had the best conversation with a customer, like who championed that. And I say it because it was like, we wanted to go back and watch the film on what was different about Gary's sales pitch than Paul's sales pitch to Eric's sales pitch to what was Phil doing, right? Why did he say what he said? But how did it end up? What was the outcome of all those different things? And so similar to measuring and looking at game film and going back and watching, how you did. I believe in the business. If there's a visual, and maybe sometimes it's looking over your numbers.
Yeah.
Your P&Ls, looking over how sales, what made this week spike more than every other week, and then looking over year. And so going back and watching the tape for us in the retail days was so much fun because we saw the value in the conversation. And there's a trigger word that somebody said, hey, let's add this into our sales pitch.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are some key benefits for us. Other benefits that I think about when it comes to doing evaluations, why they matter, is understanding that you talk about blind spots a lot.
Yeah.
Understanding the blind spots, celebrating wins before burnout. We talk about burnout.
Yeah.
People don't get celebrated, appreciated. They get overwhelmed or drained. But also how it resets your priorities for the next season as well.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about blind spots. I can remember, in football, we would always watch film. And it was this thing that the eye in the sky doesn't lie.
Yep.
So, we would watch film and evaluate ourselves. And typically, like on a pass play or a long run, the camera follows the ball carrier. So if you're out the frame, you kind of like, all right, let me just let up. Let me not, what I'm saying? I'm not going to be in the frame. I don't got nothing to worry about, right? Oh, buddy. So I was injured one season and I went to the press box, right? Because I wasn't on the field. So they had me in the press box, kind of wait for people watching the game. And up at the press box where the GMs, the owners, everyone who evaluates you to make, the decision whether or not you're going to stay with the team, get a contract, you can see the entire field.
Yeah.
Right. So you talk about blind spots. I'm like, oh my, they can see that I wasn't hustling. They can see I wasn't running.
Yeah, you
right.
gave up.
So just like, so that's why I think, just the mentality of like, look under all those areas inside of your business and really start calling them out. And in the restaurants, we had the P&L, we had rent, we had cost of goods, cost of sales, labor, but then it was this miscellaneous line. Right. And that was like 10%. And everyone just throw anything in miscellaneous.
Yep.
I'm like, no, let's break out miscellaneous and figure out how are we getting to 10 and where can we shave some of these points off? Yeah.
So it's the whole analogy. You wouldn't drive across the country without changing.
Not at all.
I was always taught, Pops always said, check your top 5, check your 5 fuels, right?
Yeah.
You want to do those things. So, making sure before you move in business, same as if you're going across the country, driving your car, you're going to check your fuel, you're going to check your tires, you're going to check directions, your map, right? You need to check your oil, power, steering, brake, windshield wiper fluid, all those things. The same with running your business. You need to check in on your team and evaluate where you are.
Right.
And so let's look at this from a business. 3 lenses.
Yeah.
Like let's look at these 3 lenses. And I just want to, I'll share them and let's go back to them. Performance. We're going to talk about performance. We're going to talk about people, and then we're going to talk about the process. Number 1, performance. When you're going back through the 3 lenses of the year in review, and you look at performance, you're talking about revenue, you're talking about margins, you're talking about growth versus goals and where you are. How do you look at the performance? Because sometimes you mentioned this even on the field. Sometimes you'll have 10, 12 tackles, and there'll be a game where you have 1 or 2 tackles.
Yeah.
But that does not mean your performance. And that, as you just shared, sometimes the perspective of the GM sees Gary hustling, sees why that running back cut out of the hole. Gary was there, so he pivoted, and you were able to get that assignment to somebody else. How does this work in the business standpoint where performance is there? George helps out other people. Yeah. Right? George is serving everybody else. But maybe George's numbers are down because he has been having his hands. We needed him here and there. Economy 2025. I can't imagine being in a sales position at a manufacturing place. Yeah. Right? There's struggles with the economy. How do you take in performance, but also understand the state of the business and the economy?
Yeah. So that's why, sometimes numbers don't tell the whole story. And
so you said men lie, women lie, and numbers can be
there can be fishy, right? Because I say that because you can have like a sales goal, and you're down on the year, right? However, profitability may be up because you found a new revenue source that kind of like help out with your sales. And also, I feel like there's so many things that don't tell the full story just because there's so many one-time events that occur that if that's not explained in detail, in your review, you would just assume like, all right, we did 10 million this year. Next year, we're going to be 20%, margins, or we're going to do, this amount of money. It doesn't work that way because there's some events that occur in 2025 that may not occur in 2025.
Yeah.
But conversely, there's some other things that could be coming down the pike in 2026. Like for us, when we were in the restaurant business, we would always look at, okay, cool. What does our surrounding 5 miles look like? Is there a new big sports complex entering, something like that? Like we opened up a store in Westfield here in Indiana, and then Grand Park opened, and then that traffic in the tournament. So we would look at the schedules for the tournaments and try to measure where we at last year in sales and know that we're gonna have an increase because that tournament that was this week last year changed its date. Yeah. So just being prepared for things like that.
Yeah. The next one is people. Mm-hmm. And I look at this different because typically at the end of the year, Gary, and I think about this, from a business, I would say, all right, when I look at my people, I want to look at engagement, I want to look at turnover, right. I want to look at leadership, bench strength, right? I want to look at these things. My first priority, and this is the difference between a transactional leader and I desire to be transformational, more empathetic in my leadership, and I care about people, and I don't want to use people to grow profit. I want to grow profits and impact people, right? So different perspective for me, but I always think about people like, what's the health of my team, right? If we hit high numbers, but my people are not healthy, and I'm looking at this December and I'm like, man, my people are not healthy, not mentally, not maybe sometimes financially. Are we not compensating in the right areas? Benefits, whatever it may be. But I always look at number one when it comes to people before I evaluate it from a business perspective. I want to know, man, what's the health of my leadership? Right. Like, are they showing up? What's the health of my leadership? And I measure the health of my leadership by what's the health of their relationships with their family, right? Family's priority, right? And I learned this, Daryl Freeman and a good friend, Rod McDaniels down in Nashville, one of the key principles that they talked about in the company I was helping out with down there, Esther Recycling Solutions, is a recycling tech company. One of the most important things that they said to me when I was getting involved with the team and helping building their business development and leadership was family is first. Right. And Rod will look at me and he said, you never miss your son's game. Practice, yeah, that's fine. Right. But if there's a game at 3:00 and you got an hour drive, you need to leave at 1:30. Yeah. And it was a priority. That was something. And it wasn't just the employees. It was a lifestyle that he lived, that family would always come first. Yeah. Daryl did this, and one of his fears at the time was heights. So what did he do? Because he didn't want to miss his kids, he ended up getting his pilot license and learning how to fly his own plane, so he had no excuses. And it was just those small principles, like family mattered. And that's a principle in my life and that I believe in. So when I think about people, I think about what's the health of my people first. And I look at it in every aspect. Physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, vocationally, like in the business. Those are the leads that I care about when it comes to the health of people. And then you go into the engagement, the turnover, and so on and so forth in the business. Anything to add there? But I want because you're very specific. And when it comes to processes, but anything you want to add to the people aspect, but I want you to transition to the processes.
Yeah. So also health, obviously those relationships, health of their family, also like their physical health. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because are they working long hours? Are they taking care of themselves? I know in companies, I had 400 employees, so we had to pay for their insurance, right? We had to see if they were working out. So we had incentives, right? If people lost weight or things like that, know that would affect their energy levels and things like that. Yeah. So I think that's also critical as well, like seeing if your people are showing signs of burnout. And just making sure you got a strong, healthy team. So I think that's critical. But then, like you said, hitting into processes, so many people think we've always done it this way. Yeah. We're going to do this the same way next year, right? But I believe there's always, especially with AI and how fast technology is moving, I think there's always better ways to build the mousetrap. Yeah. And, sometimes it's with that pivot, is with that change that's going to lead you to your new revenue growth. So you just have to be mindful, like, all right, cool. Let's just do an evaluation of how we do things. And is this going to be the best right, with us moving forward. Because we're going to talk about, our planning process and why we chose, an 18-month over a 12-month. And I think it's critical to have those processes dialed in, for the long-term health of your company.
You talk about the mousetrap. Explain what you mean right there on the analogy with the change of the mousetrap. What do you mean by that?
Right. So there is always a specific way to catch a mouse.
Yeah.
Right. There was probably that, that little thing that you snap back, right? Yeah. You put some peanut butter in there and a cracker, and then like that's how everyone always done it, right?
Yeah.
But then, as time went on, there was better ways. Now there's like they got little things that are hitting that's in the corner to catch it, right? They got little signals that you can like electronic that you could plug into your basement that could just the ear sounds only a mouse can hear, and then they'll just avoid the whole room. So there's just different ways and different ways to approach solving solutions.
Love it. So being able to adapt is the key to
exactly.
that. Processes, you got to be able to adapt for efficiency purposes. And like Gary said, we need to get in. We haven't talked about AI at all in the business. That's a conversation to come up. My partner, Ben Eubanks, just wrote his 3rd edition that came out this couple of months ago. Love to get that conversation going about AI, but also the processes of customer experience. One of the things I like to say is don't just ask what did we do, but always ask what did we learn. Like, what did we learn during this process, and how can we adapt to that? Some of the common mistakes that we make is that leaders stop at data; they don't translate it into decisions. Like, this is what the data says. This is what happened. But being able to adapt and be able to transition and translate those things into actual decisions. So many companies, whether it's they do employee surveys, they do engagement surveys, and so many people do these surveys, but they get it and they don't adapt or change anything to it. And I want to encourage you as a leader, don't do another survey in your company if you don't have a strategic process on how that's going to translate into a decision. And some of the things that we do, we're going to talk about this, the EAC model. Let's jump into this, because this framework, I believe, you can help you when it comes to adapting your business and as you're evaluating your business. EAC stands for evaluate, align, and commit. Some of the things that you evaluate, right? You're gathering honest metrics. And I believe gathering honest metrics plus feedback is the key. It's not just about gathering the metrics, but having a seat and saying, hey, Gary, this is the evaluation. This is what we have for your department. Give me some feedback on what this looks like and what you see in this. And let's work together on getting to where we want to get to, right? And so whether it's we missed the line, maybe we hit the line and we went over, but let's get some honest feedback.
Yeah.
Let's keep it real on not everything's perfect, but what worked, what didn't work, and how can we adapt?
Honest, right? And also let's put things in perspective. I can remember my time with the Colts, right? And shout out to the Colts and the squad. We were the most winningest team of any decade of football, right? So won a bunch of games. I mean, we were 14-0 twice in my career. Yeah. So won 8-0 a bunch of times. So one of the things that they would judge us on defense, and they would say our defense struggled, right? And their stat that they were judging off was like rushing yards allowed, or how many yards we gave up, pass percentage completion, all those type things, right? And we were known for playing a cover 2, which is like a safe, bend but don't break type defense, right? And as a defensive player, you're taking offense to this, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, what's going on? We want to be number 1 in defense.
Yeah.
And Coach Dungy was like, hey, the only metric that matter is defense is being number 1 in is points allowed.
Yeah.
You're right. If they score less points than us, we win the game. The goal is to win. It's not to be the number 1 defense. And that really changed my perspective on a lot of things, because, we will be up by 21, 28 points in the fourth quarter, and teams is running the football on us.
Yeah.
And we're in prevent defense, and they're getting 80 yards rushing, garbage yards.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, you're never going to come back with this strategy.
Yeah.
So just really understanding, putting things in perspective on why things look how they look.
Yeah. So reality is not always, the perception is not always reality, because there's different movement. That's a good one, because I was one of those fans like, man, can we adapt? Can we be more aggressive? I'm looking at Baltimore Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
These guys are going crazy. I'm like, we got Bob Sanders, who, in my opinion, Troy Polamalu, like one of these reckless safeties that are still can be a linebacker. Yeah. And I'm like, all right. And so from that perspective, it makes so much sense. Again, the higher you are, different perspective, you see things differently. And that bend but no break mentality. And I always, and it's a key, it's so true, if your defense is not giving up, as many points, at the end of the day, what really matters is the record.
Yes.
Right? What really matters is the win or losses. And so that's important as you're evaluating what are your wins, where are you losing?
Right.
And if you're losing because of certain things, how do you adapt to those things? And so that's where the honest metric and feedback comes into. Number 2, align these things. So once you evaluate, get some alignment. Compare findings against visions.
Yep.
Compare findings. I always like what's our vision? How does this align with our vision? How does this align with our values? How does this align with our departments, like where we are in our goals that we set in the beginning of the year? And then the last one is commit. And for this, I always encourage that people choose 3 to 5. It's kind of like core values for me. You don't want more than 4 or 5 core values. Then it just becomes a book that nobody's ever going to read.
Yeah.
You when we started our retail stores, we had 8 core values, and nobody could get past 6.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, some of these kind of align with each other. So we simplified and made it like a core 4, right? Choosing 3 to 5 priorities, assigning ownership, and setting timelines is so important. Why do people fail when it comes to the commitment part? Because you start strong, like, hey, this is what we need to do for 2026. What's some advice that you would give to help them stay committed to the process after they evaluate, after they get that alignment and compare those things together? How do they stay committed to those priorities to get them to those goals?
Yeah, one thing you'll see with like Olympic sprinters, the ones that are really good, they're so disciplined, is that they never look to their left or right in their lane. They're just always running down their own lane.
Yeah. Stay in your lane.
And when people get in trouble is that they're looking and peeking at other people's lane.
Yep.
And I think when people have 6, 7, or, hey, we just saw this company do this, let's try to add this in as well as one of our goals. And I would always, challenge my GMs, because they're always like, hey, this restaurant is running this promotion. We should run that promotion.
Yeah.
I'm like, while we can see their promotion, we can't see their P&L. So we don't know if this is actually working for them.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So you don't want to get in a situation where it's a race to the bottom and you're trying to, be very reactionary in your business. Like, you want to be proactive, set those goals, set those values, and be very stern about how you're going to achieve those.
Yeah. And some of that in the business standpoint, you're talking about weak sales pipelines. You can look at those things.
Yeah.
And, what we need to do to have that, formalized prospecting system for Q1. Looking at what's our turnover rate looking like? Back to the people aspect of it. And the action there is, are we investing enough? It's not necessarily for number one. Most people say, hey, let's invest in our people. For me, I'm like, let's invest in our leaders. Number one. Yeah. Let's get our leaders healthy. Let's get our leaders strong, right? Invest in our leadership and our training, investing in our recognition, right? Celebrating our people and where we are and getting those things. It reminds me of the mentality. And you talk about, you use the sprinter, and I love the sprinter, not looking to your left or the right. And the only time I see that is right before they get to the finish line. Yeah. Right. And usually if you rewind and look at a race, they do that, but something's going out, right? They're looking, but their hand is going out. They know that they're close. It's a swimmer, right? Swimming, and they come up for their last breath, whether it's left or right, but they're always reaching towards the ultimate goal, and that's the finish line.
But I think, like Sha'Carri Richardson does it all the time.
Yeah.
I think they know when they get the top end speed.
Yep.
And when they know that they pass everyone and they studied the film long enough and they did the review, they know no one is catching them.
Yeah. So champions don't just review the scoreboard. They adjust the playbook. Yeah. I love it now, especially, shout out to the coach. You talk about the coach and, the CEO, Carly, and she's on the sideline and she's been doing this for years. And all of a sudden this year it became a thing, right?
Of course.
But what I love about not just the ownership, she's doing it. Like, she's looking at the plays, she's writing down her notes, she's looking at the scripts. It used to just be, back in the day, you'll see Peyton Manning after he gets mad or pissed off. And one of my favorite was him and Jeff Saturday. You just hike the ball, let me call the plays. You worry about. One of the things I love is that even after that dispute, whenever the defense or the offense, whoever it is, the captains, back in the day, you had a little paper. You had to look through the paper.
They fancy now. They got tablets. With the plays.
They got tablets and everything now. But you don't just look at the scoreboard. You look at the playbook and say, hey, what's working? This is not working. Maybe we need to go in a bigger package, right? Maybe we need to adjust some things. So be willing. For me, it's always about being willing to adapt the playbook.
Yeah.
The vision, the core values, those things don't necessarily need to change. The method on how you get to that victory may. And so you got to have that alignment. And that's the next thing is aligning evaluations with 2026 goals and really focusing on those things. Don't just focus on what the problem was this year.
Right.
Design what the possibilities are for 2026.
like
and
that.
so we understand 2025, there were some problems.
Yeah.
Whether it's adapting to the economy, whether it's adapting to, if you're in manufacturing, you're getting a lot of shipments coming in, the tariffs and all these different things, the delays. You can talk about the problems. I'm always about the possibilities, right? I understand everybody's going to have oppositions, but I'm looking at the opportunities.
Yeah.
And so it's all about the perspective. 3 strategic questions I think we should ask ourselves when we come to evaluating ourselves. And we were talking about this before we went live, and you said, why 18 months? Number one, the first strategic question I love to ask myself is, where do we want to be in the next 18 months? And you said, George, why 18 months?
Yeah, right. Because like year end, you would think 12 months, like 2027. No.
You're going to year to year. But for me, I'm always pivoting because I'm reminded of you, George, 1, 5, 10. Like, what's the goals?
Yeah.
Outline everything. And there's always going to be some crossover. And for me, I always say 18 months because from this point on, from December all the way up until February, it's going to take you 2 to 3 months, right, to really start implementing the evaluations. You're evaluating yourself. You're getting alignment. You're getting people locked in for that commitment, that framework, EAC. And so you get those things, and change takes time. You can't just microwave this business and think it's going to flip. And so once you realize within the first 3 months, hey, this is the change we need to do, and you adapt those things, now you're creating a foundation and pivoting, right, into those next 12 months. And so now you're 15 months in. Now I want to, in the last 3 months of this process, evaluate again, right? So I'm always pivoting and evaluating and adapting. And so where do you want to be? And then we always talk about like habits within our personal life. And there's this method of 21 days. It takes 21, 22 days to create a personal habit. I think in the business, it takes a little bit longer to get everybody into a new habit and be able to adapt. And so asking yourself, where do I want to be? Where do we want to be as a company within the 18 months is so pivotal. The second question you want to add there?
Yeah, just one thing. Just Tony Robbins, he has this saying that as a business and as a leader inside your business, you don't have to only worry about your current business, but you also have to worry about your future business. So I think 18 months, look ahead. We'll not only look at the now, but we'll also look, enough in the future that you can make some changes.
Exactly. Where do you want to be in the next 18 months? The second question I think you need to ask is, what must change in the next 90 days to move us closer? Yeah. So once you understand where you want to be in 18 months, then you take those 90 days and say, hey, what do we got to change to get us closer to where we want to be, and evaluating this. And I always say, Gary, like, you should always be doing self-evaluations and business evaluations quarterly, if not monthly, to say, hey, after you look at those P&Ls, all right, how do we pivot? You don't have to have massive change, but how do we adapt to where we are? What's different? Are we spending more? What's moved the needle? If the profit is not where it was last year, right? This past year for us in my business, we grew, right? Our sales was great, but then you look at the expenses and like, oh, they grew too, right? So how do we pivot? How do we balance those things? And I think you got to be able to look at those things. Travel up, what's the cost of travel compared to last year? What's the cost of material compared to last year? There's certain things. We added more people to our team. So you look at these different things and you say, oh, this all makes sense. Now, next year, how do we want to pivot to where we can have more margin for profit, right? Even if things are still growing and we're adding more people, where does the margin come in? Do we need to increase our product? Right. Or is there more value there? Are we in the bottom of our industry? Are we in the middle? Do we strive to be at the top level, right? Where's our audience at, and where's our partnerships at, aligned with that to help us move closer? And the third one is, who needs to lead? This is critical. Who needs to lead each part of that change, right? Because not everybody can lead change. They can be a part of change. They can speak about the change, give advice about it. I'm a visionary. I have visions. I have creativity. But I'm always going to go to my partner and say, hey, Ben, how do we do this? Not that I can't think strategy, but I want to make sure we're aligned, because he thinks data, he thinks outcomes, and I'm thinking now and how we start this thing, right? How do we finish a line? So make sure you have the right people in the right seat. The book, The Energy Bus, talks about this a lot. Like, you don't want to just have a bunch of people on the bus. You want to have them not just on the bus, but also in the right seat on that team.
I think it's the whole mindset of if it's everyone's responsibility, it's no one's responsibility.
Say that again.
If it's everyone's responsibility, it's no one's responsibility, right? If everyone think that someone else is going to take out the trash, right? The trash will never get taken out.
Right.
Right. But no, it's that's your duty. You have to get that done.
Yeah.
Or your responsibility is budget. Yours is operations, right? Yours is the pipeline, the sales pipeline.
Right.
And we're going to meet, like you said, 90 days and then break it down to 30, then weekly on these objectives that we're going to reverse engineer from our plan and then make sure we're on track.
Yeah, I love that. It's really important for me to understand roles and responsibilities. We talk about these a lot, and understanding like who can hold the pressure. Like everybody can't deal with pressure.
Yeah.
Some people, they get pressure, they get anxiety. Like, just give me the play.
Right.
Don't give me the details. Give me my assignment. Yeah, and understand what everybody else is doing. It's an adage, and I heard this quote: "You can't play tomorrow's game on yesterday's strategy. Can't play tomorrow's game on yesterday's strategy. You got to be able to adapt. Right? Injuries happen. Somebody else is coming in. You know, Peyton Manning at quarterback is different from. I ain't gonna name any other names because I want to. If you're in the league, you're in the league, and I ain't.
Yeah.
But the starter quarterback's different from the number 2 quarterback.
No doubt.
And the number 2 quarterback is definitely different than number 3. There's a reason why they're in that position. And so making sure you understand those capabilities from a defensive mind when a quarterback. And let me ask you this: when you have the mindset, let's say you're in today's game and you're preparing for a Lamar Jackson, right? In your time, you were preparing for a Ben Roethlisberger.
Right.
Big Ben goes down, and the number 2 quarterback's coming in.
Right.
How does your mentality change? Because preparation changed. What Ben's skill set is different than the number 2.
So I give you a great example. I think at one point, backing up Ben Roethlisberger was Michael Vick. You know what I'm saying?
Period, yeah.
So Big Ben is going to sit back in the pocket. He's going to prolong the play. He wants to hit you with a pass. Right? Michael Vick, he ain't going to prolong the pocket, right?
Yeah.
If the pocket breaks down, he's out of there.
Yeah.
Right? And you're looking at Big Ben probably a 4.8, 4.9 speed, being generous, to Mike Vick, 4.3, 4.4. You know what I'm saying? So I think just being able to adjust, like you said, and prepare for some of the unknown things that could possibly occur.
So important. So making sure your future alignment means preparing your team to win before the season even starts. And I think that's important. One thing I want to give you, I'm trying to implement these championship tips.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, so I want to ask you for a championship tip. When I think about championship tip, I think it's important to make sure you're tying everything together, whatever your 2026 goals are, to your current evaluation and insights. For example, if you want to expand, if you're looking to grow, and expansion's there, but evaluation shows weak leadership, right? What do you bench? What do you build? And how do you build leaders now is important. What's one championship tip that you can give when it comes to this end of the year evaluation for people to be able to take and adapt in their workplace? Yeah.
So most companies, have employees, and if you're a leadership team, I think one of the thing is creating buy-in.
Yeah.
And, as a leader, you can go off on your own on the retreat and come back with these lofty goals.
Yeah.
But people don't think it's realistic, and the expectations, aren't aligned with yours. So I think having this as a team event, and just so happened that we also offer this, right? We could come out to your organization and help you plan, help you lead you through some of these things. But I think creating that buy-in from the team is so critical when you're talking about this goal setting, right? Because now if it's the salesperson and the leader of the sales providing the detail and the feedback and analysis and evaluation and giving you what that plan should be, now they're going to be on board to actually execute it.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like you just gave them a number out of your hat, right? They actually did some homework and provide some feedback. So create that buy-in, I think, is critical when you're talking about planning.
And I think buy-in is something that you have when you have a championship mindset within your workplace. Yeah. I always look at it. It's always like, what's your mindset on certain things? Like when I think about evaluations, when I was an employee, I'm like, man, why are they trying to judge what I do? Like I don't bring in, like I don't come in 15, 20 minutes early. Like I don't stay when they ask. I think if you can understand what evaluations are in the business and be able to perceive evaluations not as judgment, but as investments, right? Evaluations aren't judgment, they're investments. And the clearer you are today, the stronger you can be tomorrow is so important. So like when I have that championship mindset, I think champions finish strong, not because they had a perfect season.
Yeah.
Right? I think about the Patriots. They had a perfect season, but they lost to Peyton's little brother. I always say Peyton's little brother. Shout out to Eli, man. I give him respect. We give him his flowers. But you don't do those things. Right. We didn't have a perfect season when the Colts won the championship, right? Nothing was perfect, but because they were able to turn every lesson into leverage. And I think that's important for companies to understand. What lesson does this teach us? And how can we turn this into leverage as we're adapting, as we evaluate, as we align, as we commit to those things? It's so important.
Yeah, it's critical. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think alignment and evaluation and buy-in, those are keys that kind of lead these initiatives.
Yeah. So I want to encourage everybody, listen, pick one area, whether it's performance, whether it's people, whether it's your processes, to evaluate this week. Don't wait till the end of the year. Don't wait till the 1st of January. Evaluate it this week and translate it into one 2026 focus action that you can have within your workplace. And again, remember the framework we gave you. Evaluate it. How does this align? And then commit to it. With that commitment, put some experiences, put some shared strategies, put some things in place that'll get you locked in there, inspect what you expect, but also invest into those things to be able to do those things. Once again, Gary, I appreciate you, my friend.
Likewise.
To all those who are listening, share this episode with a leader, with a peer doing their year-end planning and evaluations. We'd love for you to be able to spread this news. Always remember, finish strong, start stronger, keep building your championship blueprint. And as always, champion your mindset so you can champion your purpose.